When Nancy Guthrie entered what would become her last interview, nobody in the studio had any idea what was coming. It felt normal at first: soft lighting, a cozy chair, the hum of cameras warming up, small talk about the Arizona sunsets she had always loved, the way her grandkids' laughter echoed through her Tucson home like a favorite hymn. But then something shifted subtly, like a desert wind turning cool before a storm. The crew, some who had known her for years through Savannah's on-air shout-outs on Today, suddenly went quiet, almost as though they sensed a change before she even spoke. And for one brief moment, the unflinchingly graceful Nancy Guthrie, the woman the world knew as the rock behind NBC's Golden Girl, stepped aside. She let her guard down in a way no one outside her family had ever seen, and what she said afterward stuck with everyone who heard it. Producers wiped discreet tears. The director paused the tape to catch his breath. It forever changed how they remembered her, not just as a mother, but as a woman who had carried quiet storms her whole life. And now, with her mysterious disappearance just weeks later, those words echo like a haunting, unfinished melody. Was it a goodbye? She couldn't say outright. A confession wrapped in faith. There are whispers from sources close to the family, unconfirmed but intriguing enough to keep anyone up at night. Hints of regrets she gestured toward but never named. Details that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Savannah Guthrie's unbreakable mom. Because Nancy's life wasn't just a supporting role, it was the heart of the whole story. Nancy Guthrie was not born into spotlights or silver spoons. She entered this world on August 20th, 1942, in the sleepy river town of Fort Wright as Nancy Ellen Long. The Ohio River rolled lazy under summer skies. Fireflies danced like tiny prayers at dusk. Her parents were simple Midwestern folk. Her father a factory worker with calloused hands who built model trains for fun. Her mother a homemaker who turned scraps into quilts that told stories and instilled in her a faith so deep it felt like riverbed clay, unshakable. Nancy was the middle child in a brood of 5, the mediator of sibling squabbles with a Bible verse and a hug, the girl who climbed sycamore trees not to escape, but to get a better view of God's handiwork. From the start, she saw beauty in the broken. Growing up in the shadow of World War II, she learned resilience young. Ration books meant creative meals, cornbread baked with just a whisper of sugar, stories spun to make blackouts feel like adventures. Her grandmother, Ellen Nana Hargrove, a widow who had lost her husband to the Spanish flu, shaped her most. Nana's tales of loss and redemption whispered over cups of checkered coffee planted seeds of empathy in Nancy that would bloom into a lifetime of quiet service. By high school, she was already the girl everyone turned to, organizing charity drives for Korean War orphans, tutoring neighborhood kids and reading under the glow of a single bulb. She had a light about her, not flashy but steady, like she knew secrets the rest were too afraid to ask about. College was not in the cards in the formal sense. Money was tight, dreams deferred. Instead, she trained as a teacher's aide at a local community center, days filled with chalk dust and children's laughter. In 1961, she met Charles Chuck Guthrie, an engineering student from nearby Covington with a laugh that could fill a room and eyes that promised adventure. Chuck, born in 1938 to a family of steel workers, had survived childhood polio that left him with a slight limp but no bitterness. Their courtship felt like a Norman Rockwell painting. Picnics by the river, sock hop dances, Chuck carving Nancy's initials into a walnut heart he kept in his pocket until the day he died. They married June 15, 1963, at St. John's Church in Fort Wright, 75 guests packed into pews that creaked like old friends. Nancy in a lace gown sewn by her mother walking down the aisle to amazing grace, bouquet trembling not from nerves, but from joy. The early years were a whirlwind of young love and hard-won stability. Chuck became a civil engineer building bridges across the Midwest. Nancy balanced substitute teaching and homemaking. Their first child, David, arrived in 1964, then Kathy in 1966, and finally, in December 1971, Savannah Philippa Guthrie was born in Melbourne after Chuck's job took them overseas. Under a sky of Southern Cross stars, Nancy held her newborn and believed this child was going places. Yet homesickness tugged at her, tear-stained letters sent back to Kentucky about upside-down seasons and longing for bluegrass fields. Faith anchored her through nightly devotions by kerosene lamp, psalms turned into lullabies. By 1974, the family settled in Tucson for Chuck's next project. The air was dry, monsoons fierce and fleeting, but Nancy made it home. She volunteered at church, taught Sunday school, blended finger paints with Bible stories, led field trips to Saguaro National Park, pointing out cacti shaped like crosses. David thrived in Little League. Kathy joined choir. Little Savannah toddled behind her with a toy microphone. It seemed idyllic, yet Nancy confided in a 1977 letter that blessings sometimes felt borrowed, that she prayed to hold them gently enough not to break. The shadows came in 1988 when Chuck was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Nancy became a warrior in scrubs, driving him to chemo in Phoenix, blending smoothies, holding his hand through nights when pain clawed like a coyote. He passed on May 7, 1988, Nancy at his side, Savannah reading psalms aloud. At his funeral, Nancy delivered a eulogy without notes, voice steady as steel, declaring he was not taken but called home. Widowhood reshaped her. At 46, she founded a grief support group, poured into her children, especially Savannah, who would later attend the University of Arizona and rise through journalism ranks to MSNBC and eventually co-anchor Today. Through every milestone, Nancy stood just off camera, whispering encouragement, calling the spotlight God's microphone. Her personal life after Chuck was quiet, whispers of brief companionship, but no grand romance. Her devotion centered on her children and later her grandchildren, Emma, Riley, Vale, and Charlie, who became her sunbeams. She cultivated deep friendships, led Bible studies at First Presbyterian Tucson, organized literacy drives, launched initiatives delivering audiobooks to cancer patients, co-authored a small church pamphlet titled Grace in the Gaps, and reportedly worked on a memoir, tentatively called Desert Psalms. Her revolutions were of the heart, stones rippling in Sabino Creek. Financially, her life was modest. Pensions and insurance stretched thin, engagement ring once pawned to cover expenses, savings tapped for repairs and medical bills. She tithed faithfully, sponsored missionaries, believed wealth was what you gave. There were rumors of an unexplained $5,000 withdrawal in 2025 labeled gift, untraceable, raising questions that linger. Her body bore time's marks. Migraines, arthritis, a 2012 hip fracture after a fall in the garden, months of rehab, brief dependency on painkillers she later renounced, volunteering at recovery meetings. Palpitations, sleep apnea, mobility aids by 2025, whispers of experimental neuropathy trials, speculation of early dementia flickers before her disappearance. Still, she hiked Sabino Canyon with cane and Bible, insisted the body was a tent, the soul eternal.